For me, I think what we're going to talk about over the next half an hour and hear from Josie is, I mean, we've spoken a little bit about social media over the last few hours or so, but it really does sort of embody the power of a hashtag. And for those of you who haven't known about the This Girl Can campaign, then you should probably leave because you're in the wrong place right now, okay? No, it's been huge. It's been really powerful. They talked about empowering women, empowering girls, and that's exactly what This Girl Can has done in the last year or so, in the last few months, definitely. So, to talk to us a little bit more about it, to talk to us about how it came about, its whys, whereabouts, and all the rest of it, please welcome Sport England's campaigns manager, Josie Stevens. He's going to try and yeah. Karaoke. You've got plenty more else to say, I know. Before you do get going there, Josie, just tell us a little bit about how you came about this campaign, about yourself, your involvement.
So I joined Sport England in August last year specifically to campaign manage This Girl Can. It was an idea that was in fledgling development. My background is 20 odd years in sports marketing, mainly for brands. I've worked in-house, I've worked in agency, I've worked overseas, US, Middle East and Qatar. Always working with brands, trying to use sport in exactly the way that the previous panellists were talking about. I have to say, this is the first campaign I've worked on, which is, one might loosely term marketing with a purpose, i.e. not necessarily trying to sell a product at the end of it. And from that perspective, it's been an absolute career high, no question.
I think everyone in the room has been able to see some of the positives that it's gave. And, someone. It's not a bad thing, we'll just use yours.
We could do a duet.
Well, we could, if we've got time to fill at the end. Nobody wants to see that, do they? No, but it's been hugely positive. We've seen it from the start, just what kind of an impact it made. But to light the touch paper on you, what kind of negative response were you expecting?
It's a really, really great question, because clearly we're a government agency. Sport England is a government agency, a government-backed agency, rather. We're spending public money. We needed to get permission from ministers to do this. That required an awful lot of planning to fail, risk mitigation, putting all kinds of plans in place if it did all go wrong. But in truth, we knew we'd hit on something huge. And so whilst we planned to succeed and hoped we didn't fail, we did have some awful planning sessions in place.
All right. Well, Patrick was just one of them. I know there'll be plenty of people wanting to hear from you and maybe ask some questions at the end. So if we've got a bit of time, we'll have to delve even more into your mind. But one more round of applause for Josie, everyone.
Thank you. I'm juggling two things here, a microphone, which I wasn't expecting to have, and a clicker. So bear with me if I accidentally use one instead of the other. As I'd mentioned, though, Sport England is it's a non-governmental department, but we do spend public money. Our raison d'etre is to get more people active more regularly. It's as simple as that. Sport, exercise, activity, more people doing more stuff. And we have around £300 million of public money per year to invest, and we invest that in a number of ways. We invest it with some of the organisations that I'm sure are in this room. We invest it in a number of partners, of not just NGBs, but other partners who deliver grassroots sports on the ground around England. But we also invest it internally in one of the key pillars of this campaign, which was research. We spend time and effort and some money really trying to understand our audience. And audience understanding, and I think some of the panelists previously talked about this, really knowing and understanding your audience was at the heart of why we did this campaign and why I think we believe it's had the success. So far, there's a lot more to come, I hope. We also use research to do a really important thing, which is to really identify the problem that we need to tackle. And in this instance, it's really, really clear. There are roughly 2 million fewer women than men who are doing regular sport and activity. 2 million fewer. Why is that? And it's really, really easy for us to fall back on what we believe, what we know, what probably the entire sector has been thinking. For years, it's actually about one thing, when truly what we needed to do was understand what is at the heart of this reluctance. She's telling us she wants to do more. There's a whole industry out there geared to getting her more active, and men too, but she's still not doing it. What is it? We had at our disposal our fantastic research capabilities. We have a lot of partners who work with us on research. We spent time, we invested a lot of time getting into her mindset. And what we discovered was actually, it seems really, really obvious now, but at the time, it didn't. What we discovered was the things that we and the sector had been considering were the barriers. She's time poor. She's pressurized between priorities. She just hasn't found the thing that she likes to do. Those were surface barriers. Once we started to really delve into understanding her mindset, it became really, really clear that what was going on was much, much more complex. There are many women in this room. I'm absolutely certain every man in this room has got women in his life, mums, sisters, wives, girlfriends. I can bet my bottom dollar she and you have all experienced this internal dialogue that goes on in our head. I'm not fit enough to get fit. I don't know the rules. I don't know where to start. What if everybody's dressed in lycra and I turn up in my horrible baggy t-shirt? I go horribly red and sweaty. By the way, these are my excuses. But this is part of the complex mindset that we really started to uncover. And underpinning it all, we determined was her fear of being judged. Fear of being judged in 3 basic areas. Firstly, that hoary old problem of appearance. I don't like the way I look when I exercise. I'm going to be wearing the wrong clothes and everybody else is going to be tip-top toe in Adidas or Nike. There's also and we'd have a whole presentation on this, the pressure that young girls particularly are under about the societal pressure, the media pressure on how they look. That statistic is really shocking. 8 out of 10 girls told us that they think there's too much debate in the media about the way women look, and yet 50% of that same cohort said they wanted to look like the women they saw in the media. It's quite frightening. So around appearance, around ability, you're damned if you're good at sport as a woman, so her mindset goes, you're damned if you're not. It's not feminine to be competitive at sport. This is the mindset of the girl that we're talking to, not an elite athlete, but the audience we are talking to. Me, the women in this room, I'm sure some of you are very sporty, your wives, your girlfriends. This is her mindset. If you're rubbish at sport, I'm going to let myself down. I'm going to embarrass myself. I'm going to let my teammates down. These are genuine concerns that are stopping her from taking part, even when she says she really wants to. And then finally, and a really important one, priorities. There are many, many women, many people, but many women in our group, our target audience anyway, who have caring priorities. If you put yourself first, isn't that selfish? What am I going to do with the kids? How do I take care of them? I really ought to be spending time with my elderly parents. All of these seem extremely obvious now that we we've talked about them. At the time, they came as quite real revelations to us. Why? Because I think we at Sport England, and I suspect the entire sector, had previously been delivering sport to her in a way that was a little bit more surface than this. These are just excuses, or that brilliant one, she just hasn't found the sport that she really likes. We need to show her a lot more options. And I hated maths at school. I always think saying to her, you just haven't found the sport that you like, is a bit like saying to me at school, you really don't like maths, you just haven't found the right equation. It's just not going to break through, is it? So, what we determined was we needed to do something really different, something groundbreaking, something fresh. There are probably plenty of marketeers here in this room who've used and heard use the word disruptive, but we genuinely needed to do something to cut through. We needed to reshape the language around women and exercise, sport. You could do a whole presentation on why sport is an off-putting word to this audience. And we also knew that we're a government agency. We are in this for the long term, but we need partners to join us, to carry our message forward, to help us deliver the experience she needs on the ground. So we needed to create something that had longevity, something that had the ability to be owned and taken up by not just partners, but our audience herself. And so This Girl Can was born, and it took quite some time, let me tell you, but once we'd hit on our manifesto, it became our guiding principle. It became our key message and our call to action, actually, and it's worth repeating, so I hope you don't mind if I do. But it is simply this, that women coming in all shapes and sizes and of all levels of ability, and it really doesn't matter if you're rubbish at it or if you're good at it, if you're an expert. What matters is that you're a woman and you're out there doing something. And we come back to that message every single time we're thinking about what we need to do next, because it really is at the heart of everything we do. It's inclusive, doesn't exclude sporty women any more than it excludes non-sporty women. It's positive. We hope it's celebratory. And that was a tone of voice it was really, really, really important for us to strike, because we determined that our role in communications was to really liberate her from those fears. We wanted to show her women like her, relatable women, who looked like her, who shared her concerns, who really had the same barriers that she has to doing sport, but here's some ways in which she's got over doing that, she's got over them. Sassy is a word we've used a lot, but we literally did go out and street cast. There were women up and down the country stalked by people from our production company. We wanted to show a breadth of activity, so across the campaign you'll see everything from frisbee in the park to cricket to football to table tennis. We wanted to show women, obviously, of all shapes, sizes and levels of ability. Most importantly, we wanted women with a I don't give a damn attitude, but positive and celebratory. The women you see there, I don't know if we've got anybody here from Liverpool, but they are called the Mersey Mermaids, and they swim outdoors, and that's them diving into the Albert Dock. It's pretty don't care if you ask me. Really briefly, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but we planned our campaign meticulously for a lot of the reasons we touched on at the very beginning, not least because as a government agency spending public money, we had to be sure that we were landing this in the right way, at the right time, and if we did generate, we expected a lot more controversy than we got. We really did. It didn't come. And I don't think that's just because we did our we laid the groundwork well, but we certainly did. We had 3 phases. In our first phase, we wanted to create what we called That's Me moments. Moments where women, we were raising the issues of the barriers, this fear of being judged, whether it's something that you feel yourself or whether it really is happening to you. And for her to recognize it and go, that's me. And to show her some women who'd got over that. Our inspiration was the film, our TV ad, and then self-identification is where she puts herself right in there and comes right back at us with her own examples of how she's getting over our barriers. Really briefly, because I know I have very little time, we did some great groundwork with some key influencers, both in politics, in media, and amongst our audience. We did some really nice little bits of content for 2 or 3 key partners. I'm just going to show you 2. They're really, really short. One is Kelly versus Mummy, getting over that barrier of prioritizing. This shows you how Kelly's done it, and it genuinely is her story. The second is around that really important one about appearance, and Victoria, who you see in the film, literally goes beetroot red and sweats like a pig within 60 seconds. And this is how she's got over it.
1, 2, 3. Up, down, up, down. Trying to get out to a gym and, you know, just being a single mum of the 3 of them. I just don't have any time.
Those are her kids, and that is her living room in Bury. And here comes Victoria.
Come on, posh.
It's totally all right for a man to give it everything, look rubbish, and sweat. Whereas girls have to look nice all the time. You can look nice and sweat. I hope.
Let's go. 3, 2, and
So just 2 of our 3 or 4 nice little pieces of content that we seeded out before our ad aired. We did it through, as I say, through some carefully selected media partners. The idea was to get the conversation going, and we did that through social too. We did, again, this was quite risky for a government agency. We did a social listening campaign October, November, December of last year before the ad aired, where we literally went out seeking people who were talking about exercise and joining in their conversations. I'll show you a couple of examples. Obviously, we launched our website very quietly. Our Twitter account went live. Our Facebook account went live. But the social listening is what started to lay the foundation. Over on that right-hand side, nobody's talking about This Girl Can, but our guys were out there looking. She was instead talking about being distracted. She didn't go to the gym. She went to Costa instead. So we join in with a word of motivation, you know, well, give it another go tomorrow, see how you go, let us know how you get on. And gradually we pulled people in. So in that 3 months of a little bit of social listening, social stalking, call it what you like, but in a very nice, gentle way, started to build our community. And along with the influencer work, sorry, I'm just going to go back one, because what I wanted to say was, over that period, also talking to influencers, getting those social conversations going, so that when we launched the ad, it was falling on, we hoped, fertile ground. So on January the 12th, in the middle of Coronation Street, we aired for the very first time.
I'm the hottest round, and if you want me, y'all can't stop me now. Is you with me now? The biggie bounce. I know you dig the way I switch my style. Get your freak on, 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 get your freak on. People, here I come. Now sweat me when I'm done. Now people gather round. Now people jump around. Get your freak on, get your freak on.
I'm knackered.
And we all sat with bated breath. And I remember the days when you used to go, I wonder what the papers will say tomorrow morning. I'm sure some of you do here. But the world went slightly mad. And I think the response was not only enormously gratifying, I know we felt we'd got the tone right, we felt we got the message right. I have to say kudos to FCB, our creative agency, Kim Gehrig, who made the film, and that brilliant edit. We knew that was right, but we're still a government agency spending a lot of money. So response and reaction to how this went was really, really important to us for all kinds of, not just political, but other reasons. And the response and reaction really was truly phenomenal, which kind of helped us when we then, 2 weeks later, our billboards started to hit. And I don't know if how many of you have seen some of this, but I'll just really quick through some of them. They were all designed to address those barriers that she faces. Appearance, ability, priorities over putting herself first rather than family. And it showed an incredible number of women of all shapes and sizes, all levels of ability, just cracking on with it. All of these women street cast, none of them airbrushed, all of them many of those lines came from the girls themselves, with some finessing, obviously, from our fantastic creative team. What I love most about that one is that every single girl in that picture is doing something different, which is just like my exercise class for sure. We planned for the next phase. We wanted her to identify with all of the girls in the film. We wanted her to see that they were her. And here were some ways in which she was getting over. We'd planned, I'm going to show you some of the things that we planned to do and that we did do. This was unexpected. This started to happen within hours and days of those billboards appearing. Girls, women, up and down the country, photographing themselves with our billboards and tweeting them and including our hashtag, which is incredibly gratifying. Not something we were expecting at all. In fact, Sam, our I Jiggle, Therefore I Am runner, spotted herself, which was really, really lovely, sent us a really nice tweet. Two of the things we did plan, this was an app where you could download one of our straplines, our mantras, upload a picture of yourself, and then share that across your network, share that across, including our hashtag naturally. We would then share it. It also gave us some fantastic content for our second burst of advertising, and we did some really, really lovely digital out of home using this user-generated content. That was really... It was planned. Of course, we didn't know the quality of the stuff that we'd get, but it was really, truly fantastic response. And we gave her she was already starting to tell us her stories on our Facebook page, so we gave her a separate section of our website. And this has become really, really important as our evaluation has started to come in, and we hear from our audience, show me more people like me who have the same issues I have, who live in my locality, show me ways in which she's getting over it. So this has become a really important part of our site. You'll see more of this, sharing of her stories. Just a word on response. I think you probably know this, and it does sound a little bit crowing, but it is important because it helps us convince the sports sector, and I know some of you are in the room. It helps us convince the sports minister that this is a campaign with legs. It has longevity. We do want to continue. We will continue. This is really helping. Incredible number of views across our own channels. That 36 million obviously doesn't include every time the video was taken and embedded into a news website. This doesn't help us, but I did want to tell you that so far we've had 116 countries talk about this campaign, and we've been approached by governments from other countries saying, show us how you did it, tell us what your learnings are, how can we develop our own campaign. We're Sport England, our job is to get English women active, but that's incredibly helpful to us in helping to build a coalition of political and sports sector support. An incredibly engaged community who increasingly are helping us to develop, refine ideas, not just for marketing communications, but for the delivery of a This Girl Can experience on the ground. I can't tell you too much about a pilot we have at the moment. Hopefully the next time this comes around, I'll be able to tell you some more. But ideas for what that This Girl Can experience in that particular sport, what that should be, have been sourced, not wholly, but partly, and tested with our community. They've become a really important source of inspiration for us, as well as vice versa. And I think it's worth pointing out, only because I quite like to, that when we launched, we trended just above Kiss a Ginger Day, which I think is really vital. Eat your heart out, Prince Harry. Very important. Worth also saying, and I hope this isn't crowing, but from a media perspective, two really important things here. Firstly, for a non-governmental department, but a public body nevertheless spending public money, getting 10 consecutive days of media coverage isn't hard, particularly from the Daily Mail. Getting 10 consecutive days of positive media coverage, I think, was probably a first. And I can see some colleagues at the back from our media relations team who will probably attest to that. So that was really important. More important was the media that were talking about the campaign. Media, not that Sport England regularly talks to, but who are incredibly influential to our audience. Really, we never get talked about. Campaigns like this do get talked about, obviously, in titles like Elle, Cosmo. Really great stuff for us. And just a couple of quick videos here, very short. Some great social proof. There we've had our first tattoo. It's the wrong font, but we'll let her get away with that. And another really quick bit, it's just again some social proof of changing behaviour. Because changing behaviour is what this campaign is all about, and that is not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen as a result of one or two bursts of advertising. It really, what we're doing is beginning a very, very long process, I think, of behaviour change. But I think we've kicked it off in fairly spectacular fashion. I think one of the most important things is that we have partners on the delivery side. The sports sector is on board, is coming on board. There's still lots of work to do, but part of this campaign was about creating a marketing toolkit for partners. We have 7,000 registered partners, everything from Victoria running her Mums, Bums and Tums, I'm not sure that's quite right, class in her local village hall, to the Premier League, to the FA, all of them taking our materials, making use of them, thinking about their own delivery of grassroots activation for this audience. And that can only grow. And this is going to be our next big challenge, is how we really work with partners to deliver that experience on the ground for her. Brand partners will and are becoming increasingly important to us. How can they help us change behaviour, get more women active. Our very first brand partner, though, was actually as a result of demand from the audience. Our community was telling us, I want to wear the brand. We did a really quick and dirty delivery of a t-shirt through M&S in June. Last week, that sold out online within 36 hours. I have it on good authority that we outsold David Gandy's pants, which I don't want to say any more about. We launched a new t-shirt range with them last week, which is also going great guns, much, much bigger unit numbers, wearing some of our mantras. Again, the point about this is our community was saying, how can I get involved? I want to be part of this. Lots of our panelists were talking about that kind of engagement in our in the last session. We hopefully will have more to come with M&S a little bit further down the line. As I wrap up, I hope you don't mind if I share with you some of the awards that This Girl Can has won. It has been extraordinarily pride-making for all of us at Sport England, at our agencies, FCB Inferno, Blue Rubicon, and Cara, our media planning and buying agency. It's been really important to us to see this work recognised, because it helps us. It helps us enormously with the sports sector. Oh, this wasn't just some crazy idea that came out of a funding body that should be giving that money to us to do this. We're stimulating demand. We need the sports sector to actually deliver the right experience, but having people outside of the sports sector recognise the boldness of the campaign has been incredibly important to us. And it's fair to say it's really important to us when we go back to government, as we are doing, and saying, we got the money, just give us the permission, we're going to carry on. We really want to carry on with this. So, very, very nice indeed, I have to say. Of course, as a government agency, we are evaluating the hell out of this campaign. We have a number, actually we've got measures the length of my 2 arms, but they boil down to 3 key things. I can't tell you too much about it right now. We will be publishing them, and I'm sure we'll be back to tell you in more detail once we have done. What I can tell you is the 3 measures were attitude, awareness, attitude, and action. And in all of those measures, we are seeing some really fantastic results. Much, much more to do, of course, with the help of the sports sector, but incredibly encouraging. The audience we are targeting is really showing. We're seeing some shifts in the metrics. Her awareness of the campaign is massive. Her attitudes, to how she feels, to how the campaign is helping her feel, and the action she's taking, we're seeing some really, really positive results, which is great. As I say, a lot more to come with the help of the sports sector, I think. And I'd like to wrap up, and it's unbelievably I've done it on time, James, with no shepherd's crook to get me off. I was asked to share some of the lessons that we've learned. We're still learning, and we learn every single day. This is a long-term campaign. We're only just beginning. But the lessons learned so far, I think, are threefold. Firstly, we've planned meticulously to let go of this campaign, and that is really hard. Any brand owner in this room will know the feeling of launching something, and This Girl Can, we want to see build into a brand, but from a standing start in October, December, January, to then see partners take it and use it as early as January, February, that's pretty scary stuff. It's like giving birth and sending your child off to school on its 2nd or 3rd day. But we've planned for that, and it's important to us that partners work with us, but we allow them to go and take This Girl Can and really, really make it live in their sport and in their local area. The second key learning is insight insight. Know your audience. We were super confident. We thought that we were expecting to be bashed by the likes of Rod Liddell, Jeremy Clarkson, come on, have a go, we're ready. It actually didn't happen, didn't matter, but we were expecting to have some knockers out there. But we knew, because we knew our audience, that this was going to resonate with her. So insight is really the bedrock of this particular brand campaign, and I can't stress that enough. And I think finally, be brave, be bold. You hear it all the time, and people who've done apparently successful campaigns, I'm sure, will tell you how bold and brave their board was to sign this off. Really worth saying again, Sport England is a public agency. This is not like a public information film, I hope you'll agree. But the number of necks on the chopping block to get this out of the door, this is one very, very brave organisation, and I think the results are starting to be seen. And I think that just about wraps me up.
Round of applause, everyone. Really impressive presentation from what obviously has been an incredibly impressive last 9-10 months for you guys. If you could hear resonating around this room, you probably did over the last 40 minutes. Questions, I know we will have time for just a couple of them, so if you've got them, throw your hands up, but I'll just put one to you in the meantime. And this might seem a bit of a perverse question considering all the work that you have done, but why do you think it took so long? And the reason why I ask that question is there's probably guys in this room who can see a gap in a market, and maybe they've tried and it hasn't necessarily worked. And I know in the case of empowering girls and women, obviously there have definitely been attempts. Why do you think it took so long to get this right and so right?
So I speak not necessarily as a Sport England person, but as as someone involved in the marketing of sport over the last goodness knows how many years. I think it's about using research and insight not only to understand your audience, because that's your second step. Your first step is to identify what the real problem is. And I think that was the smart piece here. We know that there are fewer women playing sport regularly, being active regularly. We know. We've known that for a long time. The smarts were using the information we had, taking time to delve into it and determining what the problem was. And the problem is the complex mindset, the complex combination of barriers encompassed in that line of fear of judgment. And I think it's time to get to the heart of the problem.
Yeah, you really unraveled it. It'll be time for coffee in a minute, but I know because people will want to ask questions to you, Josie, so let's open it up just down here. I'm sure people won't mind having 2 or 3 fewer minutes to
Jack McGill from QTV Sports. Josie, thanks very much for a great presentation. I've loved the campaign over the last year. Baroness Sue Campbell talks about something called what she describes as physical literacy and the importance at school and at home of introducing girls to as many sports as early as their elder or younger brothers do. As a father of a 2.5-year-old son, I note from all the sort of mini tots, rugby tots, football tots classes that I go to, it's still 95% boys with their dads. Occasionally mums, but mainly with dads. How much do you think your campaign is going to have an impact on family thinking and early school thinking as well?
It's an extremely good question. It's quite a complex. Let me try and encompass it. I think I have...
Without wanting to start a huge
No.
sociological debate.
We need a whole conference on that.
That was the second plan.
I think that's a whole conference on that. I think firstly, the issue of choice for girls is only part of the answer. Part of that answer is also part of what we've uncovered in terms of looking at mindset. And whilst we're targeting women 14 to 40, 14 is the youngest age that Sport England is has its, our remit is 14. Younger than that is another department. but I think they're fairly universal. And there's a hell of a lot of research that says that the delivery of, for want of a better word, PE in schools, there are some issues that about, particularly around appearance, those sorts of barriers for girls in school, that school and the delivery of PE in school could do differently. There's an awful lot of research that says little things like PE kit. Girls feel very exposed in the kind of PE kit. The way classes are organised, the gender bias that happens in classes. Girls do this sport, boys do that sport. That's setting up an unnatural barrier. There's a whole heap of other evidence that says actually, if we look deeper than choice for girls, we might be able to address some of the issues, fears that she has, and get her over them at a much, much younger age. I don't know if that's only a half answer.
And helping parents empower their young daughters to
final
be able to do
point
that
on that, because we could go on forever. We absolutely could.
We
Final
shan't.
point on that, there's some fantastic, again, research that says dad is a fantastic role model for his family, for his son in particular, but boys have a whole heap of other role models to look up to, and actually boys and elite male athletes, or even elite women athletes, have a very different relationship to girls and elite athletes. Mum has a fantastically important job in her family. An active mum is going to inspire her daughter and the rest of her family far more than the very wonderful Jess Ennises or Becky Adlingtons. Girls look at those role models and go, my God, she's amazing, but I could never do that. They look at mum and they say, wow, I could do that. If she can, I can.
Josie, time is a killer.
Always.
And it's got us. But you're not going anywhere for a minute, are you? So if you want to speak to Josie in the time that we've got for a coffee, then grab her. You'll be popular. I know that for sure. Let's give Josie a Campaigns Manager at Sport England another round of applause.